Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to Blade Bias. A happy new year to you all. I hope you have a wonderful year this year. And I personally can think of no better way to ring in the new year than by living in the past and looking back at the year prior. I will be gone for the rest of January, so hopefully this video tides you over until I get back. But nonetheless, I hope your 2026 is a great one. Let's take a look at my mess of a case here. If you ever get pull-apart foam to store your Balisongs, just know that this is what it will look like. If you go to Blade Show and you have a bunch of people picking Balisongs in and out without any regard for the foam, and also what it will look like when you put it on a plane and throw it in your suitcase and it gets shaken around everywhere. So we've got 3 cases here. I'm going to push that one to the side for a bit, because I want to start in this one. This is my kind of beginner Balisong case, I guess you could say. And if 2025 was one thing in Balisongs, the beginner Balisongs really did kind of dominate the conversation. But we'll start underneath for the Calico. Now I'm going to kind of keep things, there's a few of these Balisongs that have been in every single collection video I've done up until this point. So if you want to know a little bit more, maybe you can go back and check out the old ones. But I'll give you a little, we're just going to go through my collection. I'm going to talk about how I feel about the Balisongs in current year, 2026, now that you're watching this. That's crazy to say. This is my Calico Beta. This is a really cool one because this was actually the Calico that Tay used to announce the Calico in the beginning. If you go back to that first post, there's a purple and black one, and that is this exact unit right here. Ty and I both received Calicos early from Tay to give a little bit of feedback on, and this is very different from the Calico that would come out with the 1.5, which I'll grab right now and talk about as well. This is a far more handle biased experience. There's much more weight in the end of these handles, and it just is a lot less fun to flip, to be honest. The 1.5 Calico just feels a lot more balanced, but the Calicos were always kind of dominated by the feeling of end weight because there are just big chunks of metal in the end of the handles here, and that's pretty cool. But unfortunately, since it's for a long time now, Tay has been basically out of the community, so you can't really get Calicos anymore. I would definitely not recommend that you buy Calicos right now. I believe the website is still up. Definitely don't go out and order one of these. Buy one secondhand if you really must have one. But plastic Balisongs have come a long way since these came out. That being said, I do enjoy them. They're good to still have around. I'm going to hope I have enough room to lay all the Balisongs out. The Cycloid V2. This was an extremely exciting Balisong when I first got it. And also, you'll see the spacer system here is a lot less refined than the one on the Cycloid HD. But this Balisong got me so excited about Balisong engineering, something that I hadn't really thought a ton about up until that point. This was a public flipper for a while, so I would bring it around with me and flip it in public. I made it specifically with the Blade Bias colors. We got the green and blue. It's beautiful alt blade for the Cycloid, which I actually really do like. I love this thing. Even though the Cycloid HD has overshadowed it in pretty much every single way, I can't bring myself to sell it just because of, like, the wait for this thing. And Zippy posted on his story and said, "Hey, camaroEE, your Cycloid is ready." That was such a cool thing, dude. I was so stoked for this Balisong. And it lived up to expectations. It's still a great Balisong today, but get a Cycloid HD if you must have a Cycloid nowadays. Or actually a Cycloid LC. This is something that Ty got out during the Bally Awards. Apparently, my Bally Fleur here, I believe the silicone in the handles is kind of wearing down a little bit. It's causing the handles to stick. This is a fun Balisong, very light, not a ton of metal weight at all, but it has a very excellent balance nonetheless. It fans well, it rollovers well. It's just a fun Balisong in general. Not something that I flip super often because it does just feel very light and fragile. But honestly, for what this thing is, it flips pretty well. So I can't really say that I don't like it. Though I can't say that it gets a ton of use in my collection, I am still happy that I have been able to try one. And it's a pretty cool part of my collection. This Balisong, I haven't even bothered to fix. This is the Chroma V3, Chroma Balisong Chroma V3, and mine came with an issue. The weights weren't properly installed, so I got some extra weights, and I just never put them in. Because this thing just got overshadowed by its younger brother, which honestly I'll grab right now. The Chroma V2.5 is a really solid plastic Balisong, and I just preferred it over the V3. Although the V3 was cool, I did get to try a fully finished one that actually had both the weights in it, but we gave that away a while ago. That was 2 apartments ago at this point that giveaway happened. So I don't know. I like the Chroma V2.5. I think this is the 2.5. I just like it more. Or no, this is the V2. It says on the blade right here. It just flips better to me. And the V3, while cool, I don't actually know if Chroma is still active. I don't know if they're still making Balisongs. I do really like the blade finish here. That part is really cool. But the 2.5 I just felt was a better plastic Balisong in general. This, and actually I'll get the real one of it out now. This is the New York Balisong Customs. I actually completely forget the name of this thing, but this is the beta. So I actually worked with the guy that makes these. This is the full version right here. He sent me a few prototypes. I think he sent me 2 prototypes. The second one is in a box over in my drawer. I didn't feel the need to bring it out for this video. But pretty cool plastic Balisong. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like the older plastic Balisongs like the Tay Flipper. But the one that you get out right now, the one that you can buy, much better than the beta. It's a very small change, but it's one that's immediately noticeable. This Balisong just flips better. And the unboxing experience on this thing was unlike any other Balisong I've ever had. You open up the box and you got a little Balisong stand and a little driver, and you got a little thing of lube. It was really cool. Go check out the video that I made on this thing if you want to see the full unboxing experience. But a cool Balisong from a newer maker. That I got in 2025, actually, that I got to work with. That was pretty cool. Now, you know what? Let's just get plastic out of the way. We've got all the plastic ones right here. Let's just keep going down the plastic road. The Tay Flipper, the OG Tay Flipper. I bought this one from Ted, and it showed up the day after I got back from Blade Show. My first Blade Show, actually, I believe it was, back when the Blade Bias podcast had Brandon on as a guest rather than a normal host. This thing's awesome. Still to this day, one of my favorite plastic Balisongs because it just represents a time of plastic Balisongs when they just flipped very differently now. Modern plastic Balisongs are really chasing that kind of metal feeling experience, and we'll talk about that next with the palette. But whether you're going zippy plastic, which is just this extremely unique experience, there's a ton of different features and weight adjustment, or you're going the palette, or even something like the Frank, they're definitely aiming for a more metal Balisong feeling when you're flipping it. And the Tay Flipper just reminds me of what plastic Balisongs used to be when it wasn't really about weight, it was just about making a good light Balisong. Now, it does have issues. The finishing on it is not great. It's kind of uncomfortable, especially compared to the Balisongs of today. But I still love this thing. I cannot bring myself to sell it because it really does still live in my top 5 plastic Balisongs of all time. And it is genuinely an awesome flipper. Speaking of Flip Forge, we'll talk about the palette. I have 2 palettes here. Let me see if I can really quickly... There it is. This one, a little more handle bias because there's a little less tip weight. It actually flips quite excellently, and this one survived my trip to the bite handle rave in 2024, whereas this one did not. You'll see there's 2 EEs on the bottom here. It's because the other handle that was here that was blank broke, and I had to put the spare on. But I love how this thing flips. In terms of plastic Balisong flipping, the palette might be, in my opinion, the greatest plastic flipper of all time. Specifically this crescent blade right here. Ton of tip weight, super well balanced, ton of weight in the handles from the metal inserts that FlipForge puts in there. This thing is such an excellent flipper, and every time I get it out of my case, not expecting too much, it ends up blowing me away, and I just adore it. It's customizable, it flips great. The only thing that it isn't, like most other plastic balisongs, is durable. But if you want durable, you go with Zippy himself. The Cycloid HD, probably my favorite plastic balisong currently. Maybe it doesn't flip as great as the palette does, but it's got that durability. It's got those adjustable weights. I've talked about this enough in previous videos at the end of this year, so I won't talk your ear off too much about it here, but I love this thing. And the LC has only served to improve this thing in many ways. One thing that I actually didn't mention in the videos I made about the LC that I'm now realizing, having to go back, because I've sent the LC and the parallax and all that, I've sent that back to Ted at this point. Coming back to flipping this thing, I've realized how much more pinchy this is compared to the LC. So that's another huge improvement that Zippy made with the LC. When I flip this thing, sometimes my hand just gets a little close to this tang pin up here, and it gets pinched in there, or this one up here. And the LC, I didn't have any of that. So the LC is just a far more comfortable balisong as well. The LC really is just great. So Zippy continues to improve his products in so many cool ways, and I personally love to see it. FlipForge Edit Lite. This is another all-time plastic balisong. This is if the Tay Flipper was just perfected. The OG Tay Flipper perfected. It is light. It still carries enough momentum, but it doesn't really feel like you're flipping a metal balisong. It has one of the greatest balances I've felt in a balisong, period. There is nothing that this thing doesn't want to do except get in the hands of a smaller flipper. The biggest problem here is the durability. Although mine hasn't had too many issues, I also haven't flipped it over any terribly hard surfaces. But the thickness of this thing is like flipping two tree trunks in between your fingers, which can make choker fans a little bit more difficult to do. But the balance just makes up for it. The Edit Lite still holds up to this day, and that's why FlipForge still sells it. I still love the Edit Lite. Especially, this is a balisong that I look at and I go, I remember, I think I got the original Edit in first, which we'll talk about next here. And then FlipForge said, hey, I want to send you the Edit Lite. And I was thinking, this is going to be a downgrade. It'll probably be fine, but like whatever. And I ended up adoring this thing even more than the original Edit, which is crazy. But this thing rocks. To this day, this thing rocks. I love the Edit Lite. And its big brother, the Edit, I can't flip because at Blade Show I lost both of the screws. Unfortunately, the blade that I got sent by FlipForge to replace the old blade, there was nothing wrong with it. FlipForge just created this, I believe this is what it was. It was this new method where you could have color underneath and then like a different color on the flats. And then also this carbon fiber piece right here. This balisong is awesome, more handle biased than the Edit Lite, and feels a lot heavier, more thick. I actually can flip it without those screws. This is crazy. I'm just waiting for it to fall apart on me here, but it flips excellently. I like the Edit Lite's balance a little bit more, but I like the weight here. Still tree trunky, but I got distracted earlier. This blade is like slightly thicker than the old blade for some reason, so the screws would back out slowly over time. This is a fact that I completely forgot about when I brought this thing to Blade Show, and I let people flip it forgetting about that fact. So those screws were lost to the sands of time on the Blade Show floor somewhere, and I sit here with a screwless Edit Lite, or Edit. This isn't the Lite, this is the original Edit. Love the customization on this thing. To this day, this mint with carbon fiber is one of my favorite looks in the entire hobby. Absolutely one of my favorite colors of any balisong in the hobby, period. But besides the screws, a great balisong. An excellent one. I think the palette just refines this thing in so many ways, specifically the size, but I still love owning it. There's so many balisongs that, yes, in my collection, that yes, I own the new up-to-date version of it, but I just can't bring myself to get rid of the old stuff because the old stuff is so charming to me in so many different ways, and I still do actually enjoy flipping them. I believe one of our last plastic balisongs here, nope, I see a few more, but those are all going to be together. The Frank P. himself that everyone loves and everyone says is robbed during the Bally Awards every year. This is a great little plastic Balisong. I would describe Frank P as like if the original Squiddy could actually fan. And then you have the Frank P. It's awesome. There's a few problems with these titanium things coming out on people. I don't flip this enough to actually experience that. It is also a very smooth Balisong, so grip here isn't the greatest. But as far as plastic Balisongs go, this is absolutely one of the more flippable ones, and probably one of the better values considering it's cheaper than most of the Squiddy lineup, and in my opinion, actually flips far better than most of the Squiddy lineup. So, excellent stuff from LDY there. And finally, we have my OG Squiddy, custom painted. I don't flip it that often because this paint job is just too cool to mess up. You can actually see it's kind of starting to really undo itself here on the handles, which is a little sad, but this thing doesn't see much action. Beautiful Gyarados painted on the blade. This is a Christmas present from my friend group for my first year of college, which was super, super cool. And then we have the Squiddies themselves. I've sold my WH at this point. It just wasn't different enough to warrant staying in my collection. The Squiddy A, the only Balisong I've received for free from Squid. I made a main channel review on this thing where I essentially said, it's kind of but it's okay. A little bit slippery. Flips exactly like a Squiddy B, maybe with a tiny bit less handle weight. And some of the, especially like the Squid sponsored people, absolutely swear by this thing. I like it. I can't say too much about it because my heart belongs to my OG Squiddy B. This was my first ever Balisong, and you can really tell this is probably one of the most beat up Balisongs in my entire collection, minus that extremely rattly green Arctic that I have right over here. This was my first metal Balisong. At least these were the scales. The blade is right here. This is a completely different side tangent, which we'll get to in a second. But this is my first Balisong. Replaced the screws with titanium cyan hardware, which is faded, just because I liked the look of it and I wanted a little pop of color. But this thing somehow still flips. This thing has eaten countless concrete drops, countless drops onto every surface that you can imagine. The blade is all scratched up from the handle slap. It really just is destroyed. But man, is that a testament to how durable the Squiddy B is, because this thing has never once had an issue. The only issue I can remember having with this thing is my friend was flipping it in the car as I was on the way to get Subway, and it exploded in his hands because the screw flew out while he was flipping it. Actually, as I say that, this screw is a little bit loose here. Other than that, this thing's been great. This thing got me into Balisongs. This thing taught me so much about Balisongs. This one was my public flipper. I flipped this alone for 2 months straight before I got my first metal Balisong. This is great. I could never sell this thing. Even though I don't flip it that much nowadays, I could never sell it because you go back to your first Balisong and it just feels comfortable in a way that no other Balisong really is. Because this is where your muscle memory comes from. And I'm going to put it down before it explodes in my hand and the screws go flying everywhere. As mentioned, my first metal Balisong. So these are the scales for my original Glider Arctic. You can see they have seen their fair share of concrete drops from reviews and all of that. This is a blade that I bought secondhand, thinking that I could just put it on these scales and it would work fine. Unfortunately, this blade was pretty heavily modified. So this Arctic is a disgusting flipper. It's rattly, the handles slap, it's destroyed, but honestly, it flips better than any of the other Glider Arctics in my collection, and I just can't explain that. Why did I put the scales on this blade, you might ask? Because Glider themselves, when they discontinued the green color, sent me one of the last pairs of scales in their warehouse. And I felt it only right to honor these new scales with the original blade from my original Glider Arctic. You can see you've got paint chips and stuff or coating chips from me dropping it on various surfaces, but this is my original Arctic blade put onto the last factory pair, one of the last factory pair of the green handles what is probably my favorite color in all of Balisongs. And I'm just so thankful that Glider did that. It was such a cool thing to do. And now I have a pristine green Arctic that looks basically just like it did when I got it out of the box. And I don't flip this thing too often because I want it to stay that way. I want this to kind of be a time capsule of what it was like when I opened the box. Because when I first got the Glider Arctic, man, does this Balisong not hold up in current year. It still flips fine, and it feels incredibly premium and good in the hands. But when I first opened this thing up after flipping a Squiddy for 3 months, dude, you couldn't have kicked the smile off my face. I was cheesing like a madman flipping this thing for the first time. I liked it so much that I went out and I got another Glider Arctic in the colorway that I was initially trying to get. So my first Glider Arctic was green because I was waiting for them to go in stock. I saw they were in stock. By the time I got there, there were only green ones, green, pink, and black ones left, and I was like, screw it, I'll get green. This was my dream color. I got this shortly after. This was the same drop that I got Ty his Arctic, and the rest is YouTube history on the Telestro and camaroEE YouTube channels. A great Balisong. I mean, this originally was my Safe Queen Arctic. This is the one I kept in pristine condition, but you can see it's definitely taken its fair share of tumbles over the years because the green ones are now my main one, and this one has kind of become my beater. But the original Arctic, not a great Balisong in current year, still one of the most premium feeling Balisongs, but flipping wise, it's not the most amazing thing out there. It still flips fine though, but I will never be getting rid of these. I'll be an Arctic shill. I don't care how bad people say it is, I will be an Arctic shill because of nostalgia for the rest of time. I'm looking in here and I'm realizing that I did miss a plastic Balisong. I've missed 2, actually. You guys have probably been screaming at me about that for a while. Nope, this is not a plastic Balisong. That is my Orion. Okay, no, we're good. The original Cycloid. This is the first Balisong that was ever sent to me for free by any maker. Zippy sent me this thing so that I could make a review on it before it even launched. And then when it did launch, I released the review at the same exact time that people were able to buy this thing. Did like a release live stream with Zippy. It was a really, really cool experience. Honestly, top 5 Balisong experiences, being able to create a release review so early on in my time flipping Balisongs, especially for someone who would go on to be someone who is a mainstay in my Balisong journey as Zippy. This thing's super cool. Obviously, it has aged very poorly. This thing does not flip nor look like anything that Zippy does currently. But obviously, I just like to keep it around because of nostalgia. There is actually one other Cycloid V1 that I would like to own, and it's the original. I think it was like the 3rd drop. There was a blue one. It was blue. I actually have to remember exactly what it was, but I think it was blue, white, and silver. And I'm pretty sure I was the one that actually suggested that colorway to Zippy, because with the Cycloid V1, every drop was a different color. There were different color blades, different color sandwiches, stuff like that. And I know I suggested one to Zippy that he ended up using, and I'm pretty sure it was the blue, white, and gray one. So that was pretty cool. All right. I don't really have any specific order beyond this, so I'm just going to start grabbing stuff at random. Actually, one more plastic Balisong. The UFO. The UFO, I have nothing to say about this that I haven't already said before. It's a bad Balisong, but for some reason, you guys love this thing. One of my most popular videos on this channel is me unboxing this thing, and every time I make a video on the UFO, it jumps up to a 1 of 10. If you don't know, YouTube will rank all of your previous 10 uploads on which got the most views in the same amount of time. So a 1 of 10 means this video got the most views in this amount of time. The UFO is always a number 1. I don't know why. I don't know why you guys like this thing so much. Pretty sure the UFO video I did was one of my most viewed videos at the end of last year. So, okay, cool. And by last year, I mean 2025 as you're watching this. Now, let's get back to this case because I'm realizing we didn't do that. The Refault. An excellent upgrade. I think very deserving of Most Improved Award, even though the Impulse did take it. I love this thing. I personally am in complete disagreement with Will Hirsch on this one. If you watched his beginner Balisong video that he made recently, I think the carbon fiber is absolutely worth it. It makes the whole Balisong more light and agile, and I vastly prefer the balance on this over the G10 version. Not to say that the G10 version is bad. The G10 version is still a very good beginner Balisong, but there's just a lot more weight here. It's a lot slower of a flipping experience. It's a lot less agile. So while they are both good, I definitely prefer the carbon fiber one, especially since this carbon fiber one actually says Ethan blade bias on it. And I think that's pretty cool. Previously, we gave away a default, and then this default I actually gave to one of my friends. I am just in possession of it while they are away for the holidays. So it was actually good timing because I get to flip this thing for a few videos. And yeah, the Refault, one of the better beginner Balisongs that you can buy right now, and hopefully will continue to be able to buy for many months to come. The Teflon Vulp, so inexplicably better than the original Vulp. I can't explain it. No one I can talk to can explain it. I remember when Will was beta testing this thing, he was giving it out to different people at Blade Show. I think it was Blade Show 2024. And most people who flipped it went, wow, this flips so much better than the Vulp. What did you change? And Will swears up and down to this day that nothing was changed. And I mean, I believe him. It's just the Teflon coating. There's no other like big changes here. But the Teflon Vulp just feels so much better than the original Vulp. The original Vulp has aged very poorly. It's in desperate need of an upgrade that goes just beyond the Teflon coating, I think. But the Vulp is also responsible for the current budget Balisong scene almost in its entirety because it showed Chinese companies just how profitable cheap Balisongs can be. It put Nabali's on the map, which is one of the biggest budget Balisong makers of current times. So the Vulp, I definitely respect its legacy, but it doesn't flip that well. I mean, it flips fine, but the Chaplains just kind of suck. Teflon Vulp flips way better. It feels more solid. It sticks to your hand better. I can't really explain why that is, but it is. So that's cool. Also, of course, can't miss the Pride stickers, which I called out twice in the videos that I did on the Teflon Vulp, and I think people are still mad at me to this day. So successful rage bait. I love that. What do we want to go to next? We'll go with other cheaper Balisongs that released this year. The Impulse. The Impulse is the best cheap Balisong that I can recommend. Because, as we'll talk about next, the Canyon and the original Extrusion just kind of suck. I can't say that the Canyon sucks. I can say that the original Extrusion sucks to me. I don't really like the original Extrusion. But the Canyon's okay. But the Impulse is the first conventionally built Balisong that we've seen in this price range that I can say actually flips more like a conventional Balisong. It's not perfect, and if you have a little bit more money to spend, I think you will definitely get a better experience from some of the more expensive budget Balisongs that you can get. But the Impulse really is paving the way for that cheap $40 price point to be like actually good, rather than good with a caveat, if you will, which is super cool. I have two here. Give me 1 second. Throat's getting a little scratchy there. I have two here. I've got the cotton candy one, which doesn't have any weights in the end. It doesn't flip the greatest, definitely flies off your hands, but it's nice to just have that different experience. And then I have the Midnight black and blue one, which does have the weights and flips more conventionally. The Impulse is good. It's not my most enthusiastic recommendation out there, but for the price, I mean, you really can't beat it. And listen to this sound, though. It's an excellent tune on a $40 Balisong. We'll go on to the brother of the Impulse, the Canyon. The Canyon is the better of the two that Nabali's released last year in this cheaper Balisong lineup. I think it flips fine, but the fact that it is all steel means that there is a lot of weight, there's a lot of density. It carries a ton of momentum, and it doesn't really flip like anything else on the market. So if you're getting a Canyon with the express interest in upgrading to something else, you're going to have a lot of trouble adjusting to that new Balisong at the first few times that you flip it. Kind of like I started with a plastic Balisong, and it took me quite a while to get accustomed to the Arctic. I think the Canyon is going to be the same way. So it's a great flipper and will definitely serve you well, but there are a lot of oddities about it that will make switching to anything else a little bit more difficult. And the Extrusion V1, I just genuinely don't like. I have two here. I hate even touching this one. This is the upgrade that Nibali's was thinking about doing, making the texture more grippy. For some reason, this extrusion flips way better than the purple one that I have. I can't tell you why, but the balance is like actually good. And if this is how the extrusion flipped, I probably would have been a lot more positive on it. But the problem is that this is the most unpleasant texture that I have ever had to touch on a Balisong ever in my life, ever. And I just really hate flipping that thing. Even though the balance is great for an extrusion. I mean, still doesn't compare to something like the cheese, but even though the balance on that is great for an extrusion, that texturing just kind of sucks. And the extrusion is fine. Don't get me wrong. I like the extrusion well enough. It flips fine. But it being all aluminum, there's just some oddities in its flipping that just make it not great. So the Impulse is definitely a huge, huge upgrade in that realm. And yeah, I mean, I don't flip the extrusion that often, to be perfectly honest with you. I did exchange it out for some silver weights, though, because I thought that gave it a cool little dual tone look. Flipping it now for the first time in a while, it flips better than I remember, but I'm sure if I spend more time with this thing, I will find many, many things to complain about with it. So I just typically steer people away from that one specifically. I think a far better example of an all-aluminum Balisong is the Squiddy Al, a Balisong that I never expected to own, but someone gave me a great deal on one, and I took them up on it. This is a really, really fun public flipper. It's a really fun Balisong in general. You got slight adjustable weights with the weights in the eye up here. This texturing with the shiny aluminum is beautiful, and man, would I love to own one of the alt blades of this thing, which apparently flips a little bit better, but I just can't bring myself to spend the money because Al is so goofy, and I love him, and I would never want to replace him. He's just such a cool, funny, little goofy guy. Probably the best budget Balisong that Squid makes. Better than the Mako, in my opinion. Better than any of their plastic stuff, in my opinion. Maybe even better than something like the Triton, in my opinion. While it doesn't flip conventionally well, you know, there is a... Oh, no, that's been cracked. I was like, did I just crack that? No, this I forgot to mention this handle on this Balisong was cracked. What was I saying? Yes, while there are a lot of weird things about flipping Al, he's just too much fun. And it is a lot less weird things than something like the original extrusion. The cheese is my favorite budget Balisong, bar none. When it first came out, I was a little bit harsh on Nibali's for their marketing of this thing. They said, this is the best beginner Balisong because this is a Balisong that you can be able to flip in public and no one will ever have a problem with that. And I was like, it might not be the best thing in the world. But since then, I really have come around on it. This is the quintessential beginner Balisong. I'm not going to say it's public friendly, but it's public friendly-ish. You know, it's got fun pastel colors. It doesn't have a very obvious blade, even though it is still shaped like one. You could maybe get away with this, but really the sauce is in the flipping. The Teflon coating gives it a great grip, and this really does kind of live up to my name for it, which is the Kraken Trainer of the budget range. When you get a cheese, you just get consistent flipping, and this is a Balisong that I still go to this day, despite the $500+ Balisongs that we'll talk about later, I still come back to the cheese because it just flips well. It flips really nicely. I like it a lot. So big win for the cheese there. The final one in our little budget case over here, the Orion S. A dream come true for me. This is the best flipping comb balisong ever. This is a balisong that I really should carry around with me more often because it has more of a use than a trainer with the comb on it, and the balance is just excellent. It fixes some of the weirdness that I have with the original Orion trainer and just creates an experience that is just really worth the extra money that you pay for it. Especially the Cerakote type coating. I don't think it actually is Cerakote, but with this green and blue splatter, the blade bias colors, of course. This thing flips amazing, it looks amazing, and the coating makes the aluminum a little less sharp than it is on the original Orion, which is a pretty cool thing. So this is an excellent, excellent balisong. Next up, we'll do the Orion 1.5, from which spawned the Orion S. The live blade is one of my favorite flippers, period. Like, there is, specifically with these zippy weights in it, there is a flipping experience that I have with the Orion 1.5 that I've never really had with any other balisong. All I can describe this as is the Edit Light, but in metal form, because it just feels correct. It does everything that I want it to do exactly in the way that I want it to do it, and the only problem I have with it is that it's a live blade, and I don't typically flip live blades that often. When I'm flipping, it's more absent-mindedly, it's more like learning new things, and that doesn't lend itself well to flipping a live blade, which sucks because the Orion 1.5 live blade is one of my favorite flippers, period. It just carries momentum in such a unique way. And I mean, I really can't describe it as anything other than perfect. Not perfect. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but I can't tell you why I love it so much. It's got this beautiful blue on it with this beautiful different pinks and purples kind of spread throughout. And I threw some orange spacers on it to really make that pink pop. I love this thing. With the zippy spacers, it just makes it perfect. Even without the zippy spacers, it flipped really, really well. I was shocked by how much I liked this thing when it first came out. Then I got the zippy spacers for it, and it just brought it to another level. It increased the momentum profile of it, and it just flips so damn good in a way that I cannot explain, which is why I went out and I bought the trainer version. And then the trainer version doesn't flip anything like the live blade. I don't know why. I think the blade is just a little heavier on the trainer blade, even without these blade inserts that I have. I just don't like it as much. The Orion 1.5 trainer is like still an excellent balisong. This is still a balisong that I flip and I'm like, yeah, this is great for the price. But I would much rather pick up something like the Cheese or the Carbon Fiber Refault or just the Orion S and the live blade Orion before I pick up the trainer. I do have some zippy spacers that I bought at Blade Show that I still have not installed. So maybe that will kind of give this the balance profile that I've been really looking for. But what I really desperately want is a trainer Orion that flips like the live blade Orion, because man, they're just so different. They're so different. And I can't really tell you why. How many people am I triggering by flipping over my collection like this? Who knows? Let's move on to the main case. We'll talk about this bad boy, the Thomas Balisong Default. This is basically if the Edit became like a normal balisong. This is a tree trunk of a balisong, slightly smaller than the Edit Light, but still massive, very square, and yet it still flips okay. Like, this is a very decent balance. The Default's real claim to fame, though, is the sound. This is one of the best sounding balisongs that you could have bought when it was out at the sub $100 price point. And mine personally doesn't sound the best because I haven't tuned it in a while, because I don't flip this thing that much. The Refault just blows this thing out of the water in pretty much every single way. But it sounds really nice, and it flips decently for what it is, I will say. So, cool, default, excellent. We will go grab the plastic Balisong that I forgot about. Yet another custom Squiddy. This is why I sold the WH, because now I have 3 Squiddy B style Balisongs. This is the Squiddy U, and it was also painted to have my YouTube mascots. Long ago, when I made videos on the camaroEE channel, I had these 2 characters who actually are sitting right behind me on the lip of this couch. You guys can see them right there, Marty and Dex. They were my mascots, so to speak. And wow, my camera really didn't like that. Okay. They were my mascots. I kind of created them out of the fact that Marty was just sitting on my bed when I recorded some of my videos. And I used him to kind of be my editing voice. Sometimes when you make long form videos, you make a mistake or you do something or you say something that you just want to make fun of yourself for. So you throw in an edit. And instead of just doing a disembodied voice, I tied it to this stuffed animal sitting on my bed. And then there was like lore that I was building. It was kind of dumb, but I liked it nonetheless. And it was really cool, my friends, to get me a Balisong that included those on the blade. Another Balisong that I don't flip that often because I don't want to ruin it, but one that I love nonetheless. Let's take a step back. We were talking about Thomas Balisong earlier. The Baikal, one of my personal favorite trainers that released that year. Such a beautifully unique blade, which is ironic because this whole Balisong, if you really break it down to its core elements, is really just a Benchmade. It's a Benchmade 42 Morpho Trainer clone, because you take the Morpho Trainer, which is, I believe, is that, I don't know if it's called the Morpho, but you know that 42 Trainer that's like the diamond shape with the hole in the middle? You just take that, you kind of mess with it a little, and then you have this blade. And then this whole pattern is almost exactly what the 42 is. So it really is just like a liquefy tool in Photoshop Morpho Trainer from the 52. But nonetheless, it flips great, it has an awesome balance to it, and it has some of the best jimping I've felt on a Balisong. It's just grippy, and it really digs into your fingers, and it feels really nice to use, and I really like the original, because this is the V1 of the Baikal. And I can't lie, I love that blade, especially with this like tiered kind of cutouts they have in here. Super sick. This is a cool Balisong. Its upgraded brother is not as cool to me. I used to have, this also says Ethan Blade Bias on it, actually. This is the live blade version, which feels quite different. It actually, I guess I can't say it feels quite different. This is a Balisong that is a pretty good approximation of what the trainer Baikal feels like into a live blade. Usually when you switch to a live blade, kind of like the Orion we were talking about, it really messes up the balance profile because of the weight distribution of the blade. This is a pretty good approximation, and I do actually really like how it flips. What I didn't like was the trainer that it came with was like the upgraded version of the Baikal. It was a purple one. I have since gotten rid of that because I just didn't like it very much. It had a very weird texture on it. It had a weird finish on it. And it didn't flip nearly as well as the V1. So I just stuck with the V1 at that point. Here's a unique Balisong some of you may or may not know. This is the Fellowship Blades Hognose. Rest in peace, Fellowship Blades. I don't like this thing very much. He came out with a new version that had pivots at the end of the handles to make the handle weight a little better. But this thing just has kind of too much blade weight. It feels very awkward to flip sometimes, which is very disappointing because this was supposed to be Grant's like entry into more budget-oriented trainers. I don't know. It's not the worst Balisong I've ever flipped, but it certainly isn't the best one, and it kind of just lives in my collection as a reminder of Fellowship Blades in its entirety. I would feel bad kind of getting rid of something that is so integral to their story. And it's actually interesting. I kind of made fun of the name of this thing, but the blade actually looks like the head of a snake, and it was named after the hognose snake. So I actually do like the design on it until you turn it to the side and realize that the snake has a rat in its stomach. You can see that it flares out in the middle here. It's just a very strange Balisong. Very, very strange. Also a strange Balisong. I don't think anyone's going to know what this is. This is not a Prisma. This is the oddly designed Osprey. I have no idea if this guy is still around, if he's still making Balisongs, if he ever sent any of these out. But this was one of the first Balisongs that Ty and I saw when we joined the community from like a smaller maker. They were showing off a render of this thing, and Ty and I were like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. The angled handles, this blade that existed long before the Prisma did, so it's not a Prisma clone. It's just cool. And then randomly, we kind of forgot about it for a while. Randomly, Oddly Designed reached out and said, hey, you want to do a video on the Osprey? And I was like, hell yeah, I do. I kind of forgot that thing existed. So we sent one over. It had one of the most unique unboxing experiences ever. It was in a big hexagonal or octagonal green case that I still have. It's still buried over there somewhere. But this is a super cool piece of history. I could never see myself selling this, to be honest, because, again, I don't know how many exist. This could very well be the rarest Balisong in my collection. And I, as we'll see later, do actually have some rare ones. Speaking of rare ones, machine-wise, the Sasori. I have been back and forth on this Balisong ever since I bought it. Probably would have sold it if it weren't for the fact that I engraved Blade Show 2024 on the handles, because this was my Blade Show purchase. I originally didn't like the look of this thing, flipped one, and loved it at Blade Show so much that I had to buy one. Got it home, flipped it for a few weeks, few months, and now it just kind of sits there. I pick it up when I want a fan, similar to the Corvus. But every time I flip it, there's just something weird about it that I just don't enjoy too much. That being said, I don't hate it enough to sell it, because there's always also, as much as there is something weird about flipping this every time, there's also something fun, because it has a balance that is unlike anything else in my collection. It is like very blade biased, but at the same time doesn't fly out of your hands that often. And it is one of the most premium feeling aluminum Balisongs I have ever laid my hands on. This thing has such an amazing hand feel to it, and really expresses why Machine-Wise made the changes that they did. Even compared to my favorite, Prisma Pro, that thing feels like immaculate in the hand. Here's another weird one while we're talking about weird ones. This is the Frank, but not the Frank P, the original Frank. This is a Trainer Live Blade hybrid, where there's no tip, obviously, but this is sharp. It's not the sharpest thing in the world, but this is meant to be a live blade down here. So you have a Balisong that has no tip and also has a live blade, which, if you watch my video on the Nikiri, doesn't make for a very good combination, in my opinion. The original Frank has such a unique balance profile because the tip is so thick. This is one of the most outer weighted Balisongs, meaning that the weight is focused in the ends of the handles and in the tip of the blade, the outer parts of the Balisong, if you will. This has one of the most outer weighted balances or weight distributions I have ever felt. It fans incredible, but it still carries momentum in such an amazing way for fans and choker fans. It's actually a really fun flipper, but one that just didn't take off, I guess, because they replaced this with the Frank P shortly after it came out, and then it was never seen again, which kind of sucks. The Nibali's Wing. I'm just grabbing random ones at this point. This thing flips incredibly. I love how it flips, but the grip is not great. In fact, as you saw in the last video, in the Flip the Script episode 5, I dropped this thing tip down right into my foot. And that's not the only time I did it, because there is a part of that video that got cut out where I did it again. Actually, it was before I dropped it on this foot, on the other foot. So now I have matching tip down drop marks from the wing on the same exact spot in both of my feet. So that's super cool. Always remember, false live blades still have a sharp tip. But other than that, the wing is great. Probably one of my favorite flippers from Nibali's. Round handles, cool blade, good weight distribution, good balance. It's just a little slippery, and I think that's the only thing that kind of brings it down in my eyes. Its brother, the Vault Pro, is such an incredible upgrade from the original Vault. This is really everything that the Vault should have been. It's handle bias in all the right ways. It's blocky but not too square. It flips well. It choker fans well. It chaplains well, which is the most important thing for a Vulp. And it has this really cool, I would say never before seen wraparound G10 thing, but the Cygnus is actually what inspired the Vulp Pro and what did it first. This is a super cool Balisong. I'm super glad to own one, and its unboxing video is one of the most viewed videos on this channel. I don't know. I'm very shocked they went from the Vulp to the Vulp Pro, even to this day, because I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. And then I got it out of the box and I started flipping it, and I said, holy cow, they actually fixed it. Who didn't fix it is LDY with the Sirius V4. This is not the 4.5. This is before they added the actual texturing to it, so it's just lines here, which we thought was texturing because they said that this thing was going to be created based on the feedback of the Corvus, which is something that we'll get into a little bit later. I don't like this thing very much. I can't say that it's bad. It flips fine. It's built well. It's got a really cool kukri blade on it. I just don't flip it that often. There's so many other LDY products that I would rather reach for at this point than the Sirius V4. And the main reason that I still own it in the first place is that it says Ethan in the handle, and I think that's kind of cool. I also do like the color. The color's nice. The blade is cool. But ultimately, the Sirius kind of lost me with this generation because I own Ty's old Sirius V2, and this thing rocks. This is the trainer. I do have the live blade. This is because the Sirius V2 is back when LDY used to include a live blade with all of their products. So you could have either a trainer or a live blade. Even the Orion, and that's something that we'll get into in just a second here. This thing flips awesome. This was kind of the competitor to the Kraken back in the day. If you didn't want something that was as handle biased as a Kraken, you went for this and you got kind of a similar experience. This had a little bit more grip because there were a lot less like chamfered round parts, and there were more of these angles, and there was like this weird parts of the jimping. It was just a cool Balisong, and I think it flips incredibly. Can't really explain it, but this just flips in a different way than most other Balisongs in my collection. Sometimes I pick it up and it feels perfect. Other times I pick it up and it feels like it's lacking a little bit of handle weight because there's no screws down here and there's a few holes down here. Otherwise, an excellent Balisong, and one that I would far rather reach for than the V4 at this point. Speaking of the Kraken, let's just get the Kraken out of the way here. This is the Kraken that I purchased from Ted. Ted was trying to do some handle swaps, had an extra Kraken, reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to buy a Kraken? I said, yeah, I would love to buy a Kraken. And thus, this Kraken was born. I went with the gold and silver out of a few options that Ted had given me because this is kind of the Bally Awards colors. The Bally Awards colors are black, silver, or gold, black, and silver. So we've got the gold, we've got the silver. I've got the zippy insert with a little ball here at the tip to really balance it out, and the Kraken is just such a consistent flipper. It is a little bit boring, especially compared to a lot of the other Balisongs in my collection laid out in front of me, but this thing is such a consistent flipper. This is the cheese on crack in terms of consistency. Every time I pick this up, I'm able to just do consistent tricks that I feel like I haven't been able to land on other Balisongs in months. And I really do like it. Here's an oldie, the Orion V1. Now this is back when LDY used to include two blades in the box. So I have the live blade and the trainer. This is Ty's old version. I was given some spacers made by someone in my Discord named Warwhack that really reduced the handle weight on this thing. Compared to the 1.5, the V1 had a lot of ass weight. There was a lot of weight focus in the end of the handles down here, so it made it feel a lot heavier, less agile when you flipped it. But these wooden spacers really lightened that up and made it feel a lot better. I also purchased one of the comb blades because, actually, did I purchase one of the comb blades? I don't even remember. But I had an issue with this comb blade where it just wasn't sitted properly. You can see actually when I put it in the handle, it's like almost scraping on that one side there, and I didn't like that, so I reached out to the place that I got it from because it really does look to me like this blade is warped. Like in here it's centered, but up here it's not, and they sent me out a new one. So what I did with this one is I literally took a blowtorch to it and created like a heat ano on it. It's dirty at this point, but if you see it in the right light, you can see some very faint blues and purples there. It looked way better when I first did it, but I used it as just like a fun thing to say, hey, I've got another blade here. I'm just going to have some fun with this. I love how this thing flips. This actually kind of flips a little bit similarly to the 1.5. The 1.5 just feels like it's supposed to flip this way. The V1 definitely has that kind of modded Balisong feeling to it, where there's a little bit of weirdness, but I still own it because it's just truly unique in my collection with so many different things on it. The heat anode blade that I did, these spacers down here. I can't bring myself to sell this one, especially since it is also Ty's old one that I got off of him. So that was pretty cool. And this green is pretty cool because it's like a bluish green. There's just a lot of cool things about this thing. I like how it flips decently well. I don't, flip it a ton, but there it is in my collection. The Reverie, I believe second or third place in Create with Nibali's 2024. This Balisong is excellent. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. It has a little bit of a grip issue because this is just raw aluminum here, and there's not a ton of handle texture here to go with it. But this blade is so simple yet so elegant. I love the look of this blade so much. You've got the mill lines on the bevel here. You've got the mill lines all around the blade, and then this wavy pattern on the inside. I think it's meant to represent Damascus, but I always see it as like a mountain range. Super cool. I always describe this thing as the cheese without the Teflon coating because it's got a little less tip weight than the cheese, which means it's a little bit more handle biased, but it flips very similar. This thing is very consistent. It's a wonderful alternative to the cheese if you want something that's a little more aggressive looking. The Reverie will be an excellent addition to your collection. Also, some adjustable weights down here, which I haven't really messed with too much. You just unscrew these and then screw in a new thicker or thinner screw, I believe. But love the Reverie. Very similar to the cheese. So if you're looking for something like the cheese, but you want it to be a little more aggressive, the Reverie is a great option. Fair warning though, it is very slippery. The Akuma Matata. I don't like this thing very much. The screws suck to work on. It's got way too much blade weight. Fanning does not feel very good. The grip overall isn't very good. I don't know what happened to Akuma, but I was hoping to see them improve things a little bit. I just don't like this thing very much. This is one of two Balisongs in my collection that have this style of blade. The other one being the Tech Noir. Both of these don't flip very well. This style of blade with a trainer, the thickness here with all of this material in here, just makes for a very blade-weighted Balisong that doesn't flip very well. The Tech Noir flips better than the Akuma. It's a better version of the Akuma, but both of them aren't the best. You can see that this doesn't have screws either because the screws are actually underneath these G10 scales, so you need to pop these out in order to tighten that. I think this was an experiment that just kind of went awry, and the Akuma as well isn't the best, isn't very great at all. I don't like it very much, so I don't touch it that often. I actually tried to sell the Akuma for a while, but I didn't get any takers, so I've just kept it around. The BB Barfly Firefly. This is with the Barracuda blade, which is my favorite of the BB Barfly blades because it's actually longer. I didn't realize this until I tried out Ty's Superfly. Ty has one of the original 3 blades of the Superfly. The Barracuda blade is like significantly longer, and it just balances everything out on the Barfly stuff so much more than you would think. I really love the Barracuda blade quite a bit. The Firefly is big, it's chunky, but it's fun. I find that I don't drop this Balisong very often for some reason, probably because of a mix of its handle bias and its big chunky blades. Still a little slippery because of the finish on the handles here, but this blue and this gunmetal go together excellently. I really like this thing from Barfly. It's a really just fun flipper. The original BB Firefly was a Balisong that I also loved because it didn't have some of these cutouts, so there was a ton more weight in the end of the handles. And Ty got one. It was either on a temp trade or a normal trade, and I fell in love with it. To this day, I can't remember why I didn't go out and buy one immediately after, because I knew that I wanted to almost instantly. Little bit bulky, little bit weird, but much like Barfly's other stuff, an excellent flipper. I am also just going to move so that we have this whole section over here to put things. And the Barracuda V2 is the Firefly if it was improved in almost every single way. Thinner handles, more grip, same blade. It's balanced better, it's a bit lighter, it's more agile, and it is one of my favorite flippers in the sub $200 category. This thing rocks. Barfly is an amazing company that I think has been getting overshadowed a little bit recently. Because when he first revealed the Firefly, there were some changes that the community wanted made, and he made them within like a week. He added jimping. I think he added the cutouts. There were a few other things. I know Will and Brandon had an issue with the tangs. Obviously, the ones that I have don't have tang pins. They have Zen pins, so that wasn't an issue for me. But BB Barfly is so quick on changing stuff and making stuff better. Some of the best value in the community, especially because it's all made in Canada. So this isn't some like overseas manufacturer. This is a Canadian maker doing stuff, I believe, in-house. And it's super cool. I love the Barracuda V2. It's a little extreme sometimes because of all these cutouts down the side of the blade. But it's such a fun Balisong. If you flip it for like days and days on end, you'll probably get a little fatigued from the texturing. But if you flip it like I do, which is you pick it up for a little bit, you know, once every other week or something like that, it is such a fun flipper. One of my favorites. And an absolute S-tier Balisong. One of these days, I should go through and give all of these a ranking. Like, make a tier list based off of all of this. That would be quite a lot of work. A release this year, the Kite AL. We don't know how long the Kite AL will exist, but this is the little brother to a Balisong that we will talk about later, the original Kite, which was titanium. They changed it to aluminum. It's not my favorite budget Balisong, but it is a very good one. There's a lot of handle weight here, which I typically don't like, but I know some other flippers really do like it. The G10 here makes for some rounder handles. It is tuned excellently. This is a really solid feeling, well-tuned Balisong, and a great value. Not my favorite. I still do prefer the cheese, but as far as like slotting in to give beginners a different experience to choose from, the Kite AL is excellent, and I do genuinely recommend it, even if it isn't exactly to my taste. Here's one I should have done a lot earlier. This is my Blade Show purchase from 2023. This is a CRKT Provoke trainer, and I love this thing. There's actually a Valorant skin that I think is based off of this like mechanism they have here, but it's just such a fun little thing to do. Karambits are cool. I can't really do a lot of karambit tricks, but having a karambit trainer is just fun sometimes. So I keep it in with my Balisongs to make sure that I mess with it here and there. It's just a really cool thing. And I got a trainer because a karambit knife sounds absolutely useless to me. There is absolutely zero way I'm cutting a box like this. I mean, maybe like that would be fine, but like this, no. So trainer all the way for that one, although maybe I would get a live karambit at some point in my life. I don't know. But this trainer is super, super cool. And this mechanism is super fun to fidget with. I like it a lot. Coming into our last three in my case, look at how destroyed that foam is. That is awful. Holy cow. I need to get new foam for that, but I just haven't felt like it. The winner of the 2024 Create with the Bally's competition, the Bird of Prey, nominee this year for most innovative Balisong. The Bird of Prey is an incredibly interesting Balisong if you actually break it down, because there are a ton of different aluminum and metal and G10 pieces that go into this. There's this insert in the blade. They're all different colors. Personally, I prefer the blue and purple one that you can buy, but I've got the black and white monochrome one here. It's a fun flipper. I think its construction makes it a little more expensive than it really should be. I don't think this flips on the same level as the things that are the same price as it in the Bally's lineup, like the Wing, like the Vault Pro. But it's a super fun Balisong. And if it was a little more simple, if it was a little toned down on the design and it costed like $100, this would be an excellent value. But as it stands, super cool that someone in the community made this, and a fun thing to own in my collection. The Prisma V1. I don't flip this thing very often because I have a very early prototype, not prototype, but a very early drop of the Prisma. There is no chamfer on this blade, and it is a bit uncomfortable to chaplain, but I can't bring myself to sell the Prisma. It's just a piece of Balisong history. This Balisong, I think a lot of people would be surprised to learn, is one of the first times that a company ever did weekly drops that wasn't squid. MachineWise announced that they were doing weekly drops on the Prisma, and I about lost my mind, because at that point, the only people that consistently released Balisongs every week were squid. So seeing someone else come out with something that not only competed with squid in quality and feel in the hand, but also in price and feature set and all of that stuff, and have it be from a maker like MachineWise, who had made such interesting designs as like the Sliff T or the 50 or things of that nature, coming out with a budget trainer that would be dropped every single week, and they would actually consistently go through with that for quite a bit. This was super cool. I sold my original squid trainer to buy one of these things, and while I do miss that original squid trainer, I don't regret it that often, because what I got out of it was super cool. Our final Balisong from this case, speaking of the squid trainer, is my Squid Trainer V4. This is a really fun Balisong. I don't love it as much as I did my original V2, because I think, or it was a 2.5, I think the older the squid trainers get, the better they flip. And the thing about my V2.5 with the black and the silver blade, some of you might have been around to remember that, because I made videos on that thing. It was actually bushing modded, so I had sent it out to Static Knives, I'm pretty sure, who makes the Icarus. And he widened the holes in the blade and put bushings in it, and that thing was mint after that. Obviously, it was like this. This was where it was damaged at the end and all of that. And it had the Prisma issue where none of it was really chamfered, and those are all things that they fixed on the V4. The V4 now has jimping, it has bushings natively, it's got chamfered blade spine, chamfered end of the handles. But man, that 2.5 with the bushings, it had excellent tolerances, it sounded amazing, and it flipped a little bit better than the V4 does. That being said, I still do like the V4. The Squid Trainer is a very interesting Balisong. This is the Balisong that I learned to double scissor on, actually. Banks taught me it on one of his personal squid trainers that he had at the time. And this was in the bargain bin at Blade Show 2025, and I picked it up. It had a little bit of damage on the bottom of the handles, but I was like, that's fine, because I'm going to drop this thing all the time anyway. So I'm super happy to own a squid trainer, especially a bargain one that I got from Squid themselves. That was pretty cool. And just a cool Balisong in general, especially their teal. Squid's teal is another great color in the Bali community. Now, Balisong flippers, the time is nigh. Oh, my case fell over and now all the foam is everywhere. Oh well. To look into the Case of Wonders. These are some of my favorite Balisongs, or at the very least some Balisongs that are special in some way. And we'll start off with this beauty right here, the Impusa from Fellowship Blades. This was the first time that a company, or I guess someone I could call a friend at that point, because I had hung out with Grant before this, sent me something that was like, oh my gosh, I don't deserve this. I had worked with Nabalis on like the Vulp or whatever, but this was the first time I got something that was like expensive. And what a gift it was. It was around Christmas time. I remember waking up to a DM from Grant that just said, check your mailbox. And I opened it up and it was this thing. This thing is so incredible. It sits in my special case for a few reasons. One, I do enjoy flipping it. It's a fun flipper, but I don't flip it as much as I really should, because you can kind of see this scar on my pinky here. That's from this thing. I tried to do a scissor and I fucked it up really badly, and it gashed a giant chunk out of my pinky that it's still there to this day. It's kind of to this day the reason I'm a little bit afraid of doing scissors on live blades. Maybe not afraid, maybe afraid is the wrong term, but a little more hesitant than I otherwise would be. And I'm a little more hesitant flipping the Impusa, but this thing is gorgeous. Beautiful ano, green, blue, and purple. Mwah. Oh my gosh, when it catches the light, you see all of those colors combining in such a beautiful, beautiful way. This blade, still one of my favorites in the entire Balisong hobby. It is gorgeous. Grant just did good work, and it is really a shame that they had to pivot away from Balisongs because these things were really awesome. The Impusa, in my opinion, flips a little bit better than the original Medusa, and this thing is no exception. It rings. I to this day open up my case and I'm in shock that this thing sits in my collection because it's a knife I never thought I would own or even deserved to own, to be quite honest with you. It's a beautiful piece. I still use it to this day. What a wonderful, wonderful piece of not only Balisong history, but of my journey. The only problem with it is I somehow stripped a screw on it, even though these are T15 screws. So to this day, it has a little bit of tap because I can't fully tighten down that one screw. Otherwise, phenomenal. Impusa number 4, one of my favorite knives in my collection. The Squid Industries Damascus Kraken. I got this at my first blade show. Went to blade show with the express. It was the whole goal was to buy a live blade. I had flipped a live blade for the first time at Ty's house. Actually, you can go back and see this on this channel. One of the first videos I ever did on this channel, because this channel was born when I was visiting Ty before that blade show. I talked about the Kraken. And I think you can go back and watch those videos and you can say, I want to look for a live blade. Now that I've gotten a chance to try Ty's Kraken, it was the first time I had ever tried a Kraken. I said, I think this is what I'm going to get at Blade Show this weekend. I knew about the Damascus ones, but I didn't really pay much attention to them until I actually showed up at the show itself and looked at their table and saw it sitting there. And I knew I wanted to buy a Kraken, so I asked them, you got any of those Damascus ones left? And they said, no, those sold out like half an hour into the early bird. And I was like, oh, damn. I would have loved to own one of those. So I bought a black and silver dual tone Kraken, flipped it for most of the weekend. And then on Sunday, as booths were starting to pack up, Squid opens a drawer and finds an unsold Damascus Kraken, holds it up in the air and goes, we found a Damascus Kraken, who wants it? And somehow, without even thinking, my hand subconsciously shot into the air first. And I somehow managed to land a Damascus Kraken. And that story, I will tell it in full all the time because the amount of adrenaline rushing through as I went over to get my debit card so I could pay for it was monumental. I remember that sucks. I remember I was sitting with a group and I had gotten up to just go like take some last minute footage of the Squid booth before they had packed it up. And then I ran back over, I grabbed my bag and I said, I just bought something really cool. And then I left and everyone was like, what the hell? And this was it. This is a Balisong that I hope never leaves my collection. Damascus is something that I love, and to have a Damascus Balisong, I always wanted a Damascus knife. It was on my knife bucket list. Have a knife made of Damascus. And the fact that I own not just a Balisong with Damascus, but one of the only 40 Bowie Kraken blades that is Damascus. My favorite blade of the Kraken. And it's a Kraken, so it flips really well. This thing is an all-time Balisong. I love this thing. I don't use it that often because it just is super collectible and I don't want to ruin it in any major way. So as far as an actual knife, I don't use it terribly often, but I do flip it sometimes over this heavy carpet, trying not to flip it over my actual Balisongs themselves. But this is one of my prized collection possessions of this whole thing. Speaking of all-time Balisongs, the Sliff T. It's got gunk on it because I actually use it as a knife. This is probably my most used balisong in terms of actually carrying it around and using it as a knife. This balisong floored me. I knew that the Slift T existed, but I didn't pay much attention to it because I was like, oh, expensive, whatever, $400. And then I learned about it. It was actually in a stream. It was on a live stream on my main channel where I started to look at the spec sheet, and I was like, holy shit. This is a channel grade 5 titanium S35 VN blade that you can buy for $400 from Machine Wise. And Machine Wise was one of my favorite makers at that point. This is after I had gotten the Prisma. I believe this is after I had gotten the Prisma Pro. And I just didn't realize how good of a deal the Slift T was. So we went to Blade Show. I finally got to try one, and I loved it. But I didn't love it enough to buy the blue ones that they had at that Blade Show. So I came home, and I waited for a drop. And I waited, and then this one showed up. And little did I know, this was the only time they would ever do anything like this. This was the one time they tried this specific laser pattern. You can see there's gold and blue scratches on the surface here. I mainly bought this because I wanted something that was silver on the outside and then anodized on the inside, because the biggest thing that scared me about actually using my Impusa and flipping it outdoors was that if I dropped it, I would be messing up this beautiful, beautiful ano. So naturally, I wanted something that still had that color to it, but that wouldn't be damaged on a drop. So I thought this would be perfect. And I didn't even realize it had the scratches until it showed up. But this thing is so cool. My favorite, possibly my favorite live blade of all time, the Slift T, is a balisong that I can't really describe. Super handle biased, not a ton of tip weight. Normally, I don't like that. But on this thing, it just works. There's flat surfaces, there's chamfers, there's jimping. All of it means that you can control this balisong perfectly. A control on this balisong like no other that I've ever had. And this was actually a balisong that I used to kind of really drill my live blade flipping. It was the main thing that I flipped the summer nights that I got this thing. Did a few like story clips with it, made a ton of videos on it. And the Slift T, though it isn't my most expensive, though it's not my favorite flipper in the world, this is probably the most well-rounded balisong in my entire collection. It'll take a beating. It's a great tool. It flips excellently. And I could really never see myself getting rid of it, especially that special one that I have there. The Prisma Pro. What can I say about the Prisma Pro that I already haven't said about it? This was a deal that just hasn't existed since. $180 for a 70-75 trainer that flips this good, has another huge level of control, and has that machine-wise level finish and quality to it. This is another all-time balisong. I've got the zippy inserts in it to give it a little more blade weight. It flips excellently. It's amazing. Particularly when I put this blade on the Slift T handles, that is one of my favorite trainers of all time. It is so sick. I love the Prisma Pro. I bought this at the end of a live stream because my chat was like peer pressuring me into it. I didn't even want to buy one of them. I was like, I'm happy with my Prisma. I had really liked the Prisma V2 up to that point, so I was like, I'm going to try and find a Prisma V2. I'm not really interested in the Pro. And then my chat bullied me enough that I bought one, and it was the last one in the drop, and it ended up becoming one of my favorite trainers of all time. So man, am I glad my stream chat bullied me into that one. Also, marks the first time that I ever officially collaborated with Will Hirsch and Brandon, who up until that point were my favorite balisong YouTubers. Brandon and Will got me into the hobby like no other YouTuber really had. I watched Will's videos endlessly while I was waiting for my Squiddy Bee to arrive. And I actually have in the Glider Arctic review, they asked me to provide some footage of me flipping my Glider Arctic for them. So that was the first time that I really collaborated with them. But the Prisma Pro is the first time I believe that I had a speaking role in one of their videos. And not just that, but like a slight co-hosting role. And that was just super cool. So there will always be a special bond between me and this specific Prisma Pro. This is another balisong I really couldn't see myself selling anytime soon. Rounding off machine-wise, we have the Seraph. probably one of the most special Balisongs in my collection, and I have a bunch, as we have just been talking about. This was a birthday gift from the community, which, as far as I know, was a group of people put together by Ted, the ever wonderful Ted Flips. And you might be, if there's a Balisong that is missing from this that I think I got either this year or last, that I sent to Ted as like a farewell gift. I mentioned during the Bally Awards that he should check the package that he got. So I gave him something as a gift from me to him to really show how much we appreciate him and how much we love him. Hopefully I didn't spoil what it was by doing that, because if he watches this video and he sees that before the package arrives, that'll suck. But oh well. The Seraph is incredible. My favorite Balisong of all time. Quite a controversial Balisong, because a lot of people have a lot of problems with the Seraph. I don't care. It is the best. This is my favorite balance in a Balisong ever. I run no weights in it. It fans incredibly, and it still carries enough momentum to do rollovers. It has an incredible sound to it, and it is the single most premium Balisong, feeling Balisong in my collection. Second, maybe only to the Sliff T or the Sasori. The Opus V2 definitely feels a little bit more premium because it's not as hollow, but this thing is just so sick. I could never see myself living without the Seraph. And the fact that it is a mostly dull live blade means I flip it much more than a lot of the other live blades in my collection. The Seraph is beautiful. To think that I even own one of these is incredibly humbling. To think that I am deserving enough to have been given it in the way that I did is incredibly humbling. Just go watch that video. I think the video on Blade Bias is called What's in the Box, and that's the video that I unboxed this. I was stunned, dude. I was almost in tears, and I love this thing. This thing is just an ode to everything that's beautiful about Balisongs. Craftsmanship, everything. And the other beautiful thing is that it's not babied. Like, there's some dings, there's some dents, there's some scrapes in this thing, so I don't really feel terrible flipping it over harder surfaces or like bringing it around with me, which is really cool because it means I use the Seraph in the way that it deserves to be used. Something that like my Kraken can't really say. The Superfly is one of the best values in Balisongs. You get a full titanium Balisong with adjustable weights for like $250 sometimes. If you ask me, take out the weights and definitely get the Barracuda blade. The longer blade makes the balance on this thing so much better. But man, I love this thing. It flips great. And it's a really well balanced trainer. Great value, great flipping. I mean, adjustable balance. What else could you want? What else could you really want from a guy like BB Barfly? The Superfly is excellent. And it's actually funny because when I first got it, people were like, take out the weights. And I was like, no, I'm not going to like it without the weights, guys. And then I took out the weights, and it became like my favorite Balisong ever. So, not ever, but it just flipped so well. Here's a special one. The LDY Kite Beta also says Ethan on it. LDY likes to do that when they send me stuff. This thing is super interesting. This is another one of the best deals in the hobby. At least it was when it existed. This was a $200 live blade titanium Balisong with carbon fiber scales. I mean, just unheard of deal. And I really can't understand why they got rid of it. I do have a few complaints about it. Mostly this blade. Really, you gotta think when you flip this thing. My muscle memory is ingrained to look at a blade like this and say that this is the bite side, right? So this is the bite side, but no, the kite that's the safe side. So anytime I flip this thing, I have to be 100% locked on, because if I ever subconsciously see that blade, I'm going to think, oh, I'm not on the handle that I think I am, and then I'm going to ring of shame myself. And because of that, this is probably like one of the only live blades in my collection that hasn't cut me really bad. Of course, I say that. Let's friggin' knock on the carpet for that one. But this is another kind of piece of Balisong history. This is one of those Balisongs that LDY released and then said, you know what, we're not doing that anymore, and now it doesn't exist, which is really sad because the frosted titanium looks cool, the design is cool, it just was a cool Balisong for an excellent price. The Stitch V2, very unexpected gift from Bandage himself. one of my favorite flippers of 2025. In fact, my favorite flipper that I added to my collection in 2025. It's just a great Balisong. I mean, you've got the zippy stuff so you can change weights. You've got this beautiful kukri blade, which does kind of rival the Impusa for me in terms of kukri blades that I really like. And to top it all off, we've got a machine dulled blade. So I get the weight distribution of the live blade without having to worry about getting cut, which is just awesome. This thing flips incredibly. It's really fun to flip, and it has lived on my desk ever since I got it, especially with this beautiful blue-purple ano. Yeah, an excellent, excellent Balisong. The Corvus, a Balisong that I love to fan and that really should still exist. I can understand why it doesn't exist, but this thing is truly unique. This is another piece of LDY history that they got rid of and then said, yep, none of that anymore. We're not doing that anymore. Have fun, kids. Really cool color. This is another top color for me in the Balisong hobby. You've got the black, all aluminum, not a ton of handle weight, so it just fans incredibly. And then you have these mostly square but still round, like squared but chamfered handles, which means that they fan as if they're rounded. The Corvus is such a fun Balisong. I can't say it is objectively the best Balisong because every time I pick it up, I basically only fan it. But it is so much fun, dude. I'm so glad I own one of these. And also, of course, it says Ethan in the handle. So how can you not love that? And our final Balisong on this journey, at least to my current knowledge of things that I have, there's a good chance that there's a Balisong sitting on one of my tables somewhere that I have just completely glossed over when I was gathering them all up. But in fact, I can actually see two of them right now. So this isn't the final one. This is the Remshi Kuno. This is a Balisong that I expected to not like because this random guy named Remshi reached out to me one day and said, hey, do you want to make a video on this Balisong? And he showed me it, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I'll make a video on it, but there's no tip weight there. That's not going to flip very well. And then I got it out, and it turned out to be one of the most unique Balisongs that I have ever flipped. The Kuno is very floaty. You throw it in the air, and it feels like it just hangs there. You send it around your finger, and it takes a while to get there, but it does get there. It carries a ton of momentum, and it just is super light and weightless. It feels, if I had to describe it, like you're flipping in zero gravity. And I think that's really cool because that's unlike any other Balisong that I have ever experienced in my collection. And it really put Remshi on the map, which was cool because Remshi came out with a ton of other designs. And not only that, Remshi became like a close friend of mine. Remshi became a person that I would play Valorant with on a nightly basis with a few of our other friends that I introduced him to. And that's just really cool. It's a really cool story. To this day, I'm still trying to figure out some sort of anodization that would do this justice because this blade is all titanium. This is a canvas for a modder to work on. I still have not made up my mind. I have one idea that continues to elude me, and once I get it perfect, I might get it done, but I really want to give this thing like a proper mod job that is truly deserving of this big blade right here. All right, so let me go grab those two Balisongs that I forgot about, and I will be right back to finish off this video. All right, and here we have the two things that I forgot. This is the Baliquill, I believe it's called the Baliquill by Zippy. A very loud Balisong, but a really fun one. What else could you expect from Zippy? It uses a pen as its blade. You can take out the pen and write with it. You can pop it back in and use it as a blade. And then how do the handles work? Well, you can open up this little cap right here and put whatever you want on the inside to increase the weight of the handles. Currently, I have a bunch of tungsten balls in there, but Zippy says you can fill it up with water, you can fill it up with sand, you can fill it up with whatever your little heart desires. And honestly, what a quintessentially Zippy product to make. This I bought at Blade Show. It was like $20 or something like that. And it's just such a fun little thing. You would never expect it to flip as good as it does. But it actually does. Like, I'm not going to say this is like a crazy performant Balisong, but for what it is, I shouldn't be able to do this level of tricks on it. It's just cool and goofy and fun. And I personally adore Flippy. I adore Zippy for making this thing. This thing is so wacky. As I sit on the charging cable and almost pull my camera off my head. This thing is so wacky. I love it. And our final Balisong. This is Martine's personal machined dull live blade Prisma Pro. My favorite version of the Prisma Pro. I love the way that the leaf blade looks. I love the way that this thing flips. It's got a little bit more blade weight, it feels like, than my Prisma Pro. And most importantly, the handles are just so much smoother feeling because this thing was actually tumbled in a way that the rest of the Prisma Pros never were. This was like a test that they did that they didn't end up going with. Either that or it was like shortly before the Prisma Pro was discontinued, so it never really got the R&D and like the actual development that it could have before the thing was discontinued. But this thing flips excellently. The reason I forget about it, because it lives in a little holder on my desk, and I'm just so used to seeing it that I forgot to grab it. But this thing has stayed on my desk. This is the longest I've ever had a Balisong on my desk. Mostly because I don't want to put it in with my collection and then forget that I still have to give this back to Martine next Blade Show. But Martine was super cool and offered me an extended period of time with it at Blade Show. He was like, oh, you like that? You don't own one of those? Because I guess he thought I did have a Live Blade Prisma Pro. He was like, how about you just take that one and then give it back to me next year? And I was like, cool. I'll take you up on that. This thing has been amazing to flip, and yeah, super grateful to Martine for letting me spend some time with it, because it's just super cool. I'm gonna miss this thing when it's gone. I'm gonna have to find one of these to maybe pick up, but I think with that does it for my entire, or at least most of my Balisongs for 2025 going into 2026. I hope this is all in frame. Genuinely, I could not tell you. I'm actually going to take my camera out. It's not all in frame. Let's do a little bit of that, shall we? And a little bit of that. A little bit of that. There we go. There it is. There's my collection for 2025. And holy cow, that's a lot of Balisongs. Oh my lord. If I counted that correctly, that's 72 Balisongs. That is way more than I ever intended on owning. I had a case of 5, and I said, if I fill up this case, I'm done buying Balisongs. Granted, that was before I became a YouTuber, but holy cow, that's a lot. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little look through. This has been like an hour and a half, 2-hour video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this holds you over for the break that I'm planning on taking for January. I hope you all have a wonderful 2026. But here from 2025, man, from the past, I gotta say this year was, man, it was a roller coaster, and that's about all I'll say on it, because holy cow. But in terms of Balisongs, it was a pretty good one. I can't really complain. So a huge thank you to everyone who stayed this long. If you're still here, you're an absolute trooper, dude. But I think that's going to do it. That is most, if not all, of the Balisongs in my collection at the end of 2025. Let's see how 2026 is, but there we are. Cool? Cool. I'll see you guys later. Happy New Year.